Hello, Internet. This is Kopitiam Council once again. New week and new episode. It's been a tremendous time since we last posted on this YouTube channel or Spotify if you're listening on Spotify. Because we were interviewing Professor Tajuddin and it was such a huge hit, and we are so grateful to all of you who watch, and of course to those who are subscribed and comment and like and share the video, so that 11,000 of you as at the time of recording of that video. So it's the biggest achievement for us, Kopitiam Council, and it gives us more boost to record more episodes. Isn't it true, Adi?
Definitely. I'm very happy with how it turned out. And I think for anyone that was very excited to listen to Prof. Tajuddin, be rest assured we will definitely have him as another guest appearance sometime in the future.
Yeah, he already gave a personal guarantee to me. Like whenever he said, whenever you call, I'll be there. He said, but not just him, but other personality, other figures as well. So it would be more helpful if you could just comment down below who would you like to see on Kotem Council next. So we are not a magician that can grant your wish just like that, but we'll try as best as we can to do that. And to start off with our first episode of the week, where shall we go, Adi?
I think we kind of went through the whole Malaysia in the last episode. So I kind of want to go back to Sabah here because something did flow under the radar while we were before the episode Prof. Tajuddin, and this happened during the Kaamatan season. So what I want to talk about today is a speech made by the Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim at the Kadazan Dusun Cultural Association Hall on, I believe, the 31st of May. Now, the speech, what do you think, Haffiz? Have you listened to the speech?
I have. I have several times actually, because let's start with something good first, okay? Let's go down that path. I like the speech because I can see his honesty in terms of it, like, because most part of his speech is just about updating the rakyat, the progress that he made, the reassuring to the rakyat that he is a prime minister for all, and he did this blah 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 and so on and so on. So I think in terms of that, I salute him for his bravery also, in terms of when he faced a whole of Sabahans, from CM to whoever minister in the federal. I think a lot of them are there, attended the event, and he said that he had to defend Sabah in parliament because people in other states have to ask him, like, why you give so much to Sabah, and said, yes, I defended Sabah because they need due to their lack of infrastructure and other things as well. So in terms of that, it's good. But in terms of more of the negative side that I could pick up on, I think I would like to hear positive from you first.
Okay, I mean, well, if you can give one positive, then maybe I can only give one positive as well.
All right.
Well, I did like the whole theme of unity going on. Definitely, it's always a great message to be heard, and I think it being presented at occasions such as Kaamatan at KDCA, with attendance, like you said, the Chief Minister, the Hugon Xiao, the other big VIP names in attendance to the Prime Minister. It's good because Kaamatan itself is a very diverse, how do you say, festival. It's a very diverse holiday, which I think we do well in showcasing, and I think it highlights a lot more of the Madani spirit that Sri likes to champion so much. I mean, if you want to look at Madani, I think a bit of bragging here, but I think Sabah showcases that diversity and Madani spirit better than even say Sarawak or even the states in Semenanjung. So it's a great way to, how do you say, build off that platform. Kaamatan KDC is the perfect place to cultivate that messaging and that kind of ideal. So that's one thing I liked. But like you said, there are also negatives to point out. But I mean, like you said, the tone, the sincerity of the speech, that I have no issue with. However, I think that's all I can stop when it comes to positive. Because when I was listening to speech, of course, this is kind of a standard fare here. I mean, of course, you would want to promote the Madani concept, but I think my my attention was more focused on something else, and sad to say, some of that negativity has overshadowed a bit of my positive reception here. If you don't mind me going into the negatives, or you still want to talk about the positives?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, where do we start? Okay, so like you said, he defended Sabah. He says that we need to help out Sabah, and then that's all well and good. However, some parts of his speech was very problematic for me, I think, because he did mention that okay, well, we've given Sabah a 16 billion ringgit for in development and infrastructure, and this says this came at a very weird point in time because he also mentioned that this 16 billion here was more than the 40% revenue sharing that Sabah has with the federal government. Now, 16 billion is more than the 40%. That one I'm take issue with, one, because if you have it says more than 16 billion, that means you already have a formula ready to calculate the revenue. So if that's the case, what is the formula? If you are so adamant that this is more than the 16 billion, 16 billion is more than the 40%, then wouldn't it be a great time after? I mean, maybe the time wasn't appropriate because at KDCA, but even after, why wasn't there no mention of the formula? Why isn't there a statement, discussion, a public statement being put out for how much they calculate the 40%? Because if this is the case within the technical committee or whatever committee that they have in terms of MA63, this should be conveyed properly to the public or other organizations that are very much involved with the pursuit for the 40%, Sabah Law Society being one, because all kinds of people are having their own formulas. Some say that's net revenue, some say we have to include things such as oil and gas, while some say it's just tax revenue. So there's a lot of ideas on how to play the 40%. So we would like to know how much, like, where does this 40% formula come from? Is it developed from a discussion with the Sabahans, or is this an in-house expert within the Prime Minister's office? That is something that would have to be clarified, because that is less than 16 billion is the 40%. That's not a lot of money, Haffiz, when it comes to development here. Secondly, this 16 billion comes from where actually? Is it? He mentioned that this is an allocation. So if we're working on the budget allocations given for the past 3 years since he assumed the position of Prime Minister, for 2 or 3 years following the budget, national budget, then maybe it does kind of add up to 16 billion. However, another issue you have to take into account here is that allocation does not mean we get the full amount that is promised here. So let's say the budget last year was 6.5, 6.6 billion ringgit. The Sabah state, do not actually get full access to that allocation. Whatever we are not able to use has to be returned back to the federal government at the end of the fiscal year for the next budget. And then an issue there is that a lot of what is left over, usually we would have about 15%, 20%, 25% left over that we are not able to utilize. One, because the bureaucracy and financial distribution system is not that effective in maximizing all of it. Secondly, is that a lot of this leftover allocation tends to get moved over to the next year's allocation. So when they say they increase, that's a bit misleading. In my opinion, I think it's kind of playing with the numbers here and saying that, okay, we add more, but it's actually the leftover from the last year's allocation. So these are the two main issues I want to take with. And I don't think I'm alone in saying this, because the PBS Star came out to make a statement saying that. I think even Koisaan, together with the GRS government, some individuals from the GRS government, came out to make a statement in unity saying that this is inconsistent here. So that is my main negatives from the speech given by the Prime Minister at KDC. So before I go, maybe I'll get even to more of a rant. Haffiz, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, I would. That's my biggest pet peeve also from the speech, but from slightly different angle, because I would see in terms of the principle of owing Sabah, like it's stated in the constitution. The only reason why we, I mean, as SLS go to the court, why we do some demonstrations out of the court, because it's written in the constitutions. It's only we Sabah and Sarawak have special provision in the constitutions. That's it. Now, what needs to be whole here? It's the right of Sabah. It's like if you can say that 16 billion is more than 40%, you might as well you do the so-called unfulfilled rights of Sabahans. Then that's killing one stone with two birds. So I mean, two birds with one stone. So that's there you go, another MA63 that you can cross out of the list. But no, didn't, because he knows that number doesn't stand, like you says, like that 16 billion could be like maybe some of it is annually budgeted, but the others comes in packages of, let's say, one the Pen Borneo highway. So if you accumulate it, of course it's more than the 16 billion, but it doesn't, like you said, reflected on Sabahan state government bank account like that. There will be some money will be returned back to the federal. So I think I'm in agreement with all the GRS party members or whatever that says that this number does not reflect the true what happened behind closed door. So I think in terms of Anwar here, I think he's just in the heat of the moment, as a standing in front of a huge crowd. He wants to say something like a headline for the newspapers the next day that we give 16 billion and increment 4 billion from the last time, something like that. And I mean, this is a good time for him to make a headline, and this is where all the presence of all the parties, regardless of the political idea here, you come here to celebrate Kaamatan. It's a show, a symbolism of unity and diversity, and I think he grabbed that attention to just sweep all the public figure, the leaders of each party, so that they can see who's in charge here. But more importantly, that I also catch from his speech, Adi, is that how in the first few moments he said that he really value this unity, whatever, and then he followed on said that every time I go to overseas to meet the Germans, the whoever that he meets on the business trip outside, I never leave. This is his, and I quote Anwar Ibrahim during the speech. I never leave Sabah and Sarawak in terms of bringing in investment here. I would like to ask just one thing to our Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. How would the investors react if they see Sabah's portfolio as a state that has a lot of blackouts? There's no consistency of running water. Infrastructure wise as well, it's not as good as if you want to compare, right? Like, because he says that he promote Sabah and Sarawak. Maybe Sarawak, I don't have the complete info about how Sarawak is very well, but Selangor and Penang is far ahead from even from Sarawak. So my contentions here, like, how the investors would see Sabah and Sarawak, hey, this is a good place to invest. And it's true that we don't have a lot of big investors, apart from there's a one Korean company that I think 2 years ago that made a huge in the billions of ringgit to make a factory in I think KKIP. But that's about it, because other companies wouldn't even bother to look at us when they see this huge problem. Instead of saying this, I think he could just give assurance to all Sabahans that they would actually, through GRS government, would solve all this water problem, electricity problem, and other basic infrastructures. That would be more assuring than just say that, hey, I go meet the Germans and we promote Sabah. That doesn't make sense. That's not even what we want to hear. All those pakcik in Tambunan and in Kunak, what they want to know. Oh yes, we will have a separate grid, electricity grid for East Coast and West Coast, because right now it's not connected. So I mean, there's a lot of things to say here at the end. I don't want to seem to sound like a broken record, and keep mentioning that something really bad under the administration of Anwar Ibrahim. But I think I couldn't catch the intention that why he wanna like he said that, oh, we get so many investment, ringgit is getting stronger since the last time it dropped. I mean, for Sabahan, I mean, if you want to talk about, if you are in front of a hedge fund manager or a bunch of corporate leaders, I think that would make sense. I think some of the contents of speech is not really towards the people that's sitting, the rakyat that mostly sitting in front of him. I think it's just try very hard to sound that he is the man that's supposed to be a prime minister. What more could you dig in from his
Yeah, and
speech?
I think that's quite standard for him every time he makes a visit to Sabah. He always knows how to play up the crowd. I mean, we have to admit he is a very good orator. He knows how to make his grandiose speeches that are very evocative. Like, even if, let's say, you don't like the prime minister, you disagree with the prime minister, you have to give him, that. He knows how to make a very engaging and at the same time very evocative speech that knows how to draw out those emotions out of you. That is one thing you have to give it to him, and I think this is just another way of him displaying that oratory and rhetorical skills that he has cultivated over the years. Definitely, on a class of his own, it's hard to find prime ministers of his caliber. That one you have to give it to him. But when it comes to what you mentioned, like okay, lack of water, lack of infrastructure development, there was one part of the speech. Maybe we can chalk this up to a positive with an asterisk there. Okay, there's a caveat, underpinning caveat to it, is that he vowed to eradicate hardcore poverty in Sabah, and the time frame, which I think was by July or August, right?
Next month,
Was the
yeah.
time next month? So we don't have much time. So if really the prime minister wants to make it happen, right? We should see next month overnight. Things would be completely different in Sabah. But I mean, lofty of an ambition it is. It is quite unrealistic. I mean, it is okay, not quite. It's very unrealistic. How are you going to resolve hardcore poverty? Hardcore poverty in Sabah displays itself in very very different forms when you compare it between region to region. Like let's say poverty in the East Coast. Takes on a manifestation very differently from what happens in the rural hinterland or even the urban poverty in Kota Kinabalu. So this, I think, is a very non-committal blanket statement just to put over people saying that, okay, very good, the Prime Minister is fighting to eradicate a very serious issue in Sabah. But at the same time, in what way, though? What is the measures being taken? Of course, infrastructure is one, because when you have infrastructure, it provides people a better quality of life and able to have openings and opportunities for them to enhance themselves. So it's of course a very good idea. Of course, people want to eradicate hardcore poverty, but we're not eradicating it overnight. So there's a huge caveat to what he says here. I do commend him for acknowledging that there is a hardcore poverty issue here in Sabah. When it comes to poverty in Malaysia, Sabah is very, very, very well behind, and it's not the same. You cannot employ the same strategies or the same policies that you have in, let's say, Selangor or KL, where it's urban poverty, or maybe even, let's say, in poverty in the northern states. Sabah is very, very different because the population density is just very, very low. Places are sparsely populated over way larger landmass. So that is something that would require a lot of planning, a lot of coordination, and a lot of understanding the local context and local situations that's happening here. So if we're going to play with this idea of eradicating hardcore poverty, of course, for me, the best idea is first you have to find a way to let the local government have more initiative, have more agency, at the same time more accountability in how they conduct themselves. So because the local governments are the closest to the ground, the third stage of government, they would know where to address, they would know how to identify, and then these kinds of input can be put back to the state, and the state can also put it back to federal or vice versa. It depends how easy you want that relationship to be, and you can craft your policy and tailor fit it for that specific situation. So, any mention of that? I don't think so.
I just want to come in a little bit because the differentiation of hardcore poor and poor here by the government standard here is that those who cannot have their daily life, like they couldn't have put food on the table and cannot buy clothes. These are the basic necessities that you need. And then the difference with the poor is that those who are living under the minimum wage that the national or Sabah state standard is. So what he's saying that from the number reduced from 20,000 to 9,000 is those who actually been given some aids to so that they can be mitigated in terms of not having food the next day and not having something to wear for the next week or month. So that's I think the standard that they say. So by just giving this some money and maybe packages, bundles, and then you would solve hardcore poverty. So that's the modus operandi here for the government. Then poverty is something else. Is altogether something that you mentioned, like in its infrastructure, so that people can actually go out of the minimum wage or slightly below the minimum wage. So that's I think how they see. I think there's a problem here when we are so fascinated with the label, like hardcore poverty or whatever, instead of reflections of how happy are the Sabahans with the current situation. All right, like even though you are hardcore poverty or poverty in this category, but can you access to it? Can you get an access to education fairly? Can you get access to a stable job? So these are the true, I think, the true measure of what how you want to see, like whether the racket are prosperous or not, rather than just having this very niche statistic that would say, hey, we reduced from 20,000 to 9,000. I mean, it's a great effort for doing that. Like you mentioned also, like kudos to Madani government for doing this and have a focus on this. But and a mistake in terms of having a different focus instead of the real focus is also something, a mistake that someone cannot afford to have, because otherwise it's just gonna keep going and keep going, something like this. Like, yes, the maybe this month, I mean this year 2024, you may educate what do we call this, hardcore poverty by the July of 2024, but will it happen again next year? Will there be people that from poor becomes hardcore poor again? So there's no sustainability in terms of that. There's no mention of planning how to keep them out of it for the longest time. So it's just a plan that, hey, we give you some aids. Now you are poor, not no longer hardcore poor. You become part of the statistic. Then I'm gonna mention this in event full of Sabahan leaders and for the nationwide to see. You see something wrong with that, like
Yeah, if
they.
it's so easy to bring them out of hardcore poverty, it's easy for them to slip back.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So there's like you mentioned, the real focus here is infrastructure and everything. These are the things that electricity and water, Adi. Like it's, I mean, recently there was UMS students in front of Sabah Majajaya building where CM office is, and it's in a way we see Sabah, we are Sabahans, and when we see other people, these are the students actually of a national university that whatever courses they're doing, try to study, but they couldn't even get water. And this is something very heartbreaking for Sabah. Like other people already talking about mastering AI or what could be the next frontier of technology, and our student here is still busy demoing in front of a CMS office about water supply. And then I don't know, Adi, what could be said more in terms of this.
Well, yeah, Hafiz, you mentioned the UMS water issue. Now, if some of you may think we're going on a tangent, but let me get back to speed here, because the CM, the Prime Minister did give a whole speech about eradicating hardcore poverty and then infrastructure development and all that nice things. But UMS students protesting in front of the Menara Kinabalu, where the CM's office is. UMS is under a federal ministry, the Ministry of Higher Education. So they are the ones overseeing most of what's the affairs of UMS. So, and not to mention that the Prime Minister did provide about a few million, 4 million ringgit last year to alleviate these water issues, and then made a statement later saying that, oh, he needs to get to the bottom of this because he doesn't know what happened or the progress. So it's definitely under his responsibility as well now. He has a stake in this. So, well, UMS students, if you want to protest, if you're upset with your water, I'm not suggesting anything here, but the Prime Minister comes here often and he has a stake in this. So you could always have a few words with him. You could always say something to him. Your mileage may vary based on what he'll say, though. So, but it's not something to keep it. I mean, it's something to keep at the back of your head. But another thing is just to move on here. One more point to make was that. Now, this is something not in the speech, but its omission kind of gives more sort of sets the tone even more here, and that is the establishment of the JKDM, which is a new. We mentioned this twice already in 2 episodes, which is the Kampung Council. It's a council for the kampungs in Sabah. But when we already have an agency uh, catered to the affairs of the villages here, so I'm not gonna repeat it again. But the Prime Minister's omission of mentioning it when he has all these grandiose ideas of developing and cultivating Sabah, its omission kind of already can kind of be, you can kind of interpret it saying that this is something that is a bit under wraps, because how it is pursued as a policy is also very uh, quite ambiguous. Okay, it's not really public knowledge. Neither is it really publicly discussed, except for the YBs that do take issue with this, because they okay, not just because that this is an agency now under KPLB, which is under UMNO President Zaid Hamidi, but it was also, so this is under federal control, but also this was not discussed much or even at all in the Dewan Undangan Negeri, our state legislative assembly. So that is why the Prime Minister doesn't want to talk about an issue that is, for a lot of Sabahan lawmakers, is something that of concern. So him not mentioning that is a waste of an opportunity to actually gain that confidence of those lawmakers who already take issue with this, because this would definitely be a thorn in his side, not just him on the Prime Minister, but the Sabah government as well, in trying to be resilient to any federal machinations, as it was back during the 70s and 80s. So not mentioning this is kind of a shame for the Prime Minister's confidence in trying to manage Sabah's affairs.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of that we said about, like, I'm just gonna say here in Kopitiam Council, we try to be impartial as possible. We give credit where credit's due. Like, we mentioned few good things about in our podcast. You can just look through our episode that we agree with. Let's say subsidy retargeting strategy. I think we like it very much. But there are certain things that we need to be called out. Like, I think I rightly agree with Adi. Like, for those students who wants to show your frustrations, maybe you can address it to someone else as well if he comes again next time in the future, because he also boasts that he keeps coming to Sabah. So the next time he comes, you know what to do. Any last remarks from you about this topic today?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just a speech, and then who knows? Maybe down the line we'll look back and say that kind of overreacted to this, making a whole episode on just the Prime Minister's speech. What else would they? But I mean, he's made so many speeches, right? So if we've done an episode on every single speech, we'd have content for the entire year. But nonetheless, this is more just because it's something that sets a lot of narratives here and kind of lets question into the Prime Minister's enthusiasm into Sabah. And we have to call it out for what it is. Of course, there are other initiatives that the Prime Minister has taken, which we do commend, which we do support. But our support to the Prime Minister also means that we should be able to give some critique as well. We're not being, I don't think we're being too hypercritical about the Prime Minister. I think we're just saying it for what it is as Sabahans here. So.
Yeah. I think try to be being fair to him as well. Like certain things that being implemented is positive, then we will call it as positive. For those who are still wondering why you should listen to Kopitiam Council in terms of government policy or even foreign policy, I think we would offer you in terms of perspective from Sabahans, because both of us are Sabahans. Maybe you like to listen to the yellowish that ex or former health minister podcast. Sure, go ahead and listen to that, because but differently they don't speak from Sabah's perspective, where we have the additional perspectives of being Sabahan, especially when we talk about SLS the other day, and you could not hear one sentence about this in that podcast, didn't you? And also, if you listen to the another ex MITI deputy minister, also if you enjoy that, maybe but that's from different perspective, also from Saban's perspective. So if you want to see it complete, you might want to listen to all these 3 podcasts. Don't you think so, Adi?
Well, I don't really listen to them either. I mean, only watch the shorts on social media. So, but I guess it's content for somebody. I mean, I do sometimes watch, depending on the episode of interest. But and again, we're Sabahans, so obviously we would gravitate naturally to topics of a Sabahan disposition. So there you go.
Yep. For those who are just as our new subscribers from the Professor Tajuddin's episode, welcome once again to Kopitiam Council. And that's it for this episode. Goodbye for now.